Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Signals from Mars. I'm your host, Victor, and joining me today is Darren from the band Greyhawk. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Victor. How are you, man?
Doing good as well. So, one of the things that really jumped out at me about the band was how prolific you guys are with releasing material. Since 2018, you guys have released either an album or an EP more or less every 2 years. When you guys start to write material, is it for a specific album or EP, or do you guys just always write and stockpile things?
It's a good question. It's a little bit of both, I would say. Um, Generally speaking, I mean, our first EP, Ride Out, that was our first songs, basically. We'd gotten together and written a bunch of songs and, didn't have a record deal or anything. And I'm a firm believer that if you're going to go out and play live, you should have something to either sell or hand people. Otherwise, they're going to completely forget about the band they saw that they never heard of at that bar that night. I mean, it's those
Right.
guys that played those songs. What are they called again? I don't know. They didn't have a CD. So that's where that one came from. And generally speaking, our EPs are usually B-sides or kind of like leftover tracks that we thought were cool, but they didn't quite make a full length. But yeah, when we write and we're sitting down to say, okay, we're going to make some new material, we've got some ideas, there's generally a full length concept in mind.
Okay. When writing this album, how much did having a new singer in Anthony Corso affect how you guys were writing these songs?
Very much so. If anyone's familiar with the band, we've had our old singer Rev Taylor was our singer from day one until 2024 when he left the band. Rev was very much a baritone operatic singer. We had Anthony come along, who is not that. Anthony is very much, your Bruce Dickinson, higher register, Michael Kiske, power metal voice. So that definitely, I personally believe that most individuals, when they listen to music, they hear the vocals first. I mean, that's kind of the first thing that people are going to use as their judgment point of, do I like this or do I not? So I personally think if you're writing melodic music and you're not tailoring your music to your singer's abilities, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. So it was tricky because the idea was we had to pivot to suit Anthony's voice, but we didn't want to pivot too far where we're not being true to what the band is and all the people that have been loyal to us over the years and bought our records. So we're definitely, we appreciate our fans and our fan base and the people who have gotten us all over the world, and flown and traveled to see us and whatever. So we don't want to make everyone mad, right? But you definitely have to think about the style of music you're writing and the keys you're writing the songs in. They have to be in your singer's capabilities.
Gotcha. And was Anthony your first choice, or do you guys have to do a search to come upon the right guy?
A little bit of both, man. I would say we put a search out there to say open auditions. Greyhawks needs a singer. He was the first guy.
Yeah.
I put, and they always say it's never the first guy. Well, I will say sometimes it is, because we put the ad up, I think, on a Tuesday. He got a hold of me on a Wednesday, and he had an audition in my inbox on a Friday. So it was a combination of, well, first of all, wow, this guy's works. He's a worker. He grinds. He's prolific. He knows what he's doing. And also has a great voice. And I kind of was like, hey guys, like I know this is the first guy, but we got to take a serious look at this dude. And we kind of like put him in the let's have him audition box and said, okay, well, we'll give people some time because you never know.
Right.
Maybe Rob Halford quits Judas Priest next week and decides he needs a new gig, right? So
Right.
you want to people are working on the song, so you want to give them some time. But I think like 2 weeks in, we're like, okay, let's have this guy out to sing live because our audition was, hey, send us a tape, right? It's very important in 2025, 26 that you can record your own stuff in this and work on your own stuff at home. So let's have this guy out to sing. And we asked him to learn 4 songs, and he looked up our live set lists and learned the entire set and came to practice with like 10 songs ready. And it was like, this is just undeniable. So let's just not waste this guy's time or anyone else's and hire them. So yeah, it was the first guy. If it was an open search, but yeah, he was the first choice.
Okay. And outside of writing for him and trying to leverage his skills, What else was kind of the plan of action that you guys wanted when writing and recording Warriors of Greyhawk?
Um, wow, that's a very good question too. So Anthony came with a great set of skills that we didn't know that he had.
Okay.
It turns out he is part of the Nail the Mix crew. Like he's really heavily involved in those guys, and he's a very skilled audio engineer. He mixed and mastered lots of things, and we actually recorded the entire album with him in his
Oh,
home
wow.
studio. And now when I say home studio, I have a home studio behind me. I have like two monitors and a Scarlett input thing. That's my home studio. Anthony has like a studio, with mixing boards and a drum room and all this other stuff. And he's recorded many bands in there. So we tracked everything with him. Um, and then we sent it off to Henrik Udd, who's quite a big shot, mix and master guy over in Sweden, and he took care of that
Mhm.
end. But yeah, I mean, for me, I was looking for somebody who can work efficiently, who I don't have to babysit. I'm in my 40s now. I've done enough of babysitting musicians in my 20s and 30s. So I wanted somebody who can be responsible and handle their business. And yeah, he's been an absolute dynamite addition to this group, not just in his singing abilities, but in what he can do behind the scenes. And it's just he also has like he's not an egomaniac. He's really chill. He doesn't have lead singer disease for the most part. And I don't want to give him too much credit. But yeah, he's a great guy to work with. So we couldn't be happier.
Okay. So who officially produced the album? Because in the press release it said that Henrik did the production.
Yeah, so he basically I guess that it depends on how you define that word, which is kind of a loosely thrown around word in the music industry.
Right.
So Anthony engineered it. So we tracked drums, guitars, bass, vocals, keyboards, orchestration was all done here at his studio. We edited all the tracks here, and we got everything in a nice package. Then we sent that off to Henrik, and Henrik did the mixing and mastering. So he took care of all that, as I guess you would call that post production work. So
Okay.
that was all Henrik, and that's like he's a guy who's just, I mean, he's done Striker, Hammerfall, Architects, like you name it, like so many Powerwolf, like so many cool bands he's worked with over the years. So yeah, if there's any musicians listening, like Henrik Udd Recordings in Sweden is a guy you should talk to if you want your albums to sound awesome.
Okay. So and that's interesting because back in the day, um, the engineer was the producer. I mean, there's so
Yeah,
many documentaries that are out there available that they say, well, producer didn't actually that word didn't start getting thrown around until like the early 80s. In all honesty,
yeah,
the engineer is who kind of did all that, all
yeah,
the
or he was a guy who had an engineer in the room with them, and I would love to
yeah,
make a record like that one day because I know like all my favorites, like all my favorite Maiden and Priest and Dio and records and stuff had a guy who was the producer who was working from the band from like the demo phase all the way up to the
yeah,
end, and working with them on making the music. And I think that would be a cool process to have somebody who is just really knowledgeable, saying, hey, maybe you should shorten this up, maybe you should change this riff here. It'd be interesting to do that. It would be probably difficult in some ways having someone be like, no. But it would be cool to like hear people's expertise and different takes, because as a musician nowadays, most bands don't do that. So you can kind of run the risk of getting stuck in an echo chamber of just kind of doing whatever you want, whether you should or not.
right. Yeah. So in other words, you want to find your Martin Birch.
That would be awesome, man. Like I would love to. I would love to do that one day. One day that would be really cool. But I think it has to be somebody that's a really special skill. I think that those guys have, where they can have the trust of a band to take their music and their art and kind of mold it and have them almost be like an additional member of the band for a
Right.
period of time. That takes a really kind of special individual to be able to do that effectively, I think.
Right. On the flip side, though, if you guys are engineering it internally, you guys are essentially doing all the quality checks as far
Yep.
as there's also a thin line there as well to know
Yep.
when you need to say, you know what, that really wasn't that good. Maybe we need to. Is it difficult for you guys to decide, you know what? we need to work on that more, or that isn't as good as what we initially thought it would be?
I mean, I think that generally, I mean, everybody here is pretty. Egos are not really a thing in this band, which is amazing. And everybody is definitely about the cause, but I'm kind of the guy who has, for lack of a better term, has to be a dick sometimes. Like sometimes I'm just like,
Right.
I don't. This is, and I'm never like, this sucks. Do this again. Or
Right.
it's more like, hey, I don't think we should do A, B, or C, or I don't think this really cuts the mustard because of A, B, or C. But when it came down to things like track selection, that's very much a group effort.
Okay.
For this one, we demoed about 20 songs, 20,
Wow.
25 songs, I think.
Okay.
And we all kind of sat down at my house and we just listened to all of them, and we debated and we talked and we went back and forth, and had it took all night. Like, we basically were there all night, and yeah, we just basically narrowed it down to the group of songs that you see there on the record. So yeah, it was it's always a process, and it is difficult because everybody gets attached to certain songs.
Right.
Everyone in Greyhawk will be like, I'm not attached to this song, but they are. Like they are. So it comes down to a lot of debate, but sometimes a lot of times I wind up being the guy. But I manage. I run my own company on the side, so I'm used to having to manage people. So it's
Okay.
kind of part of my skill set.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there anything that turned out better than what you had expected, when before shipping the album off to Henrik, or even after, when hearing the mixes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a song on the record called Hyperspace that, I was not as high on when we finished it, but when we got it back, I was like, oh man, this is actually a really cool song. And there's a lot of when Anthony tracked his vocals, there was a lot of surprises for me.
Mhm.
Like, there's a certain note in a song called Rise Above where he kind of hits this really almost desperate sounding raspy scream that I was like, oh wow, like, never heard you make that noise before. Right.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, with Henrik, we kind of he was an intentional pick. He did our last album Thunderheart as well. And what I did with that one is I basically cherry picked 15 or 16 albums in our genre by bands who, I mean, not by because a lot of times, the producers will say like, hey, everybody pick 3 of their favorite albums, and everyone's like Heaven and Hell by Sabbath, or Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden. And it's like, okay, those are masterpieces from 40 years ago, not necessarily so applicable today. So I basically
Right.
picked like 15 or 20 albums from now who were done by our contemporaries, bands like, Unto Others and Eternal Champion, and go down the line, and just
Mhm.
pick. It was a wide variety, but everybody landed on the album Play to Win by Stryker, which was one of the
Okay.
ones I picked. And I think that Stryker are one of, if not the best band on like the indie trad metal circuit, and they have been for 20 years. And I love that record, and everybody basically was like, this guy, we all like this one. So we basically went to Henrik and said, hey, this is our reference point. It's an album you made. We'd like you to take this kind of treatment and then give it to our album. So that's another thing I felt was a very intentional move. Like, everybody kind of, let's pick an album that we all agree we like what this sounds like. It's new. Here's the guy that did it. Let's ask the guy that did it to do it, because he knows how it's done, right? He
Right.
made the sausage. He knows how the sausage is made. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. As a bass player, is there anything that you tried differently outside of just the overall sound that we're talking about? Is there anything in your playing that you did differently? Is there anything from a gear standpoint that you use differently on this album?
Definitely. This one I used I used a very nice high-end Spectre bass that Spectre made for me. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of gear. It's actually right behind me. This is
Cool.
my custom Spectre bass. It's made out of old growth redwood, nice quilted maple top, abalone inlays. It costs a lot of money probably, but they hooked me up with it, so I don't know. But it sounds like $1 million. So that was one of them. The other one was I used Dark Glass electronics to get my tone. Henrik, of course, reamped it and added a bunch of EQ and messed with it. So gear wise, that was definitely a change for me to use some really nice high end Spectre gear. You know, plug for my guys in Spectre. I love them so much. I got their tattoo. But playing wise, Anthony really pushed me in the studio to try some different things. You know, try a fill here or there, try this here or there. He's like, you really, there's one part in Warriors of Greyhawk where there's this, you know, really cool tapping arpeggiated part. He's like, you're good at tapping, try something there. And there's one song in particular that our guitar player, Rob Steinway, wrote called The Endless Race. And it's a song he wrote for a band him and me used to be in called Skeletor. And okay. I know that song meant a lot to him. And I really wanted to come up to honor the original demo, which the original demo was made had a bass player who is a much better bass player than me. So there was some pretty crazy bass lines like originally arranged for it, and I really wanted to honor the original arrangement. So I really had to push myself on that one. If you listen to The Endless Race, the bass on that is really, really wacky. So, but I'm very proud of how it came out, and now I have to play it live. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. And the cover of Warriors of Greyhawk was worked on by Daniel Porta.
Yep.
How, obviously, you guys, I'm assuming, had a ton of input on that. What was the original idea behind it? And then ultimately, how difficult was it to get to the vision that you guys wanted for the cover?
So when I do album covers, I basically try to make things. I view the album cover one as obviously a piece of art, but I also view it as an advertising piece. Mm-hmm. So I try to make album covers that stand out. That if you see it on a screen, if you see it on a rack in a record store, and you go, I need to know what that sounds like because that looks insane. So basically, our inspiration was old Dungeons and Dragons books, okay. You know, or 90s like RPG games, that kind of stuff. Because we're really trying to harken back to some of the power metal from that time. You know, back in the 90s and 2000s, that's my favorite power metal. So we kind of wanted something that was a little retro in that way. And the idea was to kind of have all the band members in like a D&D party with a big wizard behind us. And yeah, it came together pretty quick. It just kind of, once we started just kind of having a little fun with it and like laughing, you know, having a good time, like coming up with this thing that we wanted to make that was over the top and, you know, kind of crazy looking. And Daniel I'm in another band called Glyph. And Daniel did the artwork for our last EP called Invictus, and I really liked it. And he was really easy to work with. He seemed to understand assignments really quick. You know, he didn't really have trouble. He doesn't really have any trouble visualizing what the band wants. Like when you give him an idea, he can kind of spin it and start sketching it right away. So he's really easy to work with. And his Instagram handle, just plug him real quick. He's at the Pit Forge. So if any bands are looking for quality artwork, hit him up. He does a lot of great stuff for a lot of bands. But yeah, that was kind of just it. Like if you look at the album cover, Keepers of the Flame, which is our debut, it's like, it's kind of ugly in some ways, but it's really like eye-catching, right? Like that's kind of my idea for album covers, is always to make them be eye-catching. Like I love Riot's album covers, even though they're hideous, but like the steel makes you go, oh, I need to know what's going on here, right?
Right. Yeah, I get that. We've had many a discussion on Riot album covers. So
yeah, for sure. I saw a vinyl version of Naruto in the wild the other day, and I was showing a friend of mine who's not a metalhead this cover, and I was like, you know, this probably looks like shit to you, but to me, this is gorgeous.
So the album is coming out on CD, vinyl, and cassette.
Yeah.
How closely did you work with your label on getting the album out on all those formats?
Now, very closely. Cruz del Sur is one of my favorite labels. It has been for a long time. I've known about Cruz del Sur. Actually, first hit my radar in the 2000s when I was playing shows up in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I was playing with a band called Antiquus, who were signed to Cruise at the time.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, wow, like I didn't know too many bands back then who were on a label, let alone a European label. So I, of course, started following them, and I found bands like Slough-Fag and countless other underground bands at the time. So I always wanted to. I was like, man, I'd love to get an album out on that label one day. So we tried a couple times. The timing just wasn't right, and then we wind up meeting Enrico at Keep It True Festival in Germany in 2024 when we played there, and we just hit it off with him. He's a great guy. He's really smart. He's funny. He's personable. He's one of the best guys in the. There's a lot of really good people in like the new traditional metal scene, and he's one of the tops, and he's just a really good guy. So yeah, when we agreed to do this album, we kind of talked about certain things, and I was like, yeah, like these people love cassettes. I don't understand it, but they love them. Like I remember when I was a kid getting cassettes as CDs came out, I was like, oh man, you mean I don't have to press rewind and fast forward to get to the song I want to hear?
Right.
I'm a happy man. But some people seem to love them, and I get the nostalgia. I think it's very cool having. I have a cassette. We had Thunderheart and Keepers of the Flame come out on cassette, and I still have one of each on in my collection, and I love having them. And I never had a problem selling them at all. It's crazy, but I do now find that CDs are resurging. Like we're selling
Right.
a lot of CDs in the pre-order, and and last time we were in Europe, like we didn't bring enough. I brought a lot of vinyl, thinking everyone's going to want the vinyl of Thunderheart, and the Germans just wanted CDs. We sold out real quick, and then after Keep It True, our club shows, we didn't have any CDs left, and people were upset. They're like, "I wanted the CD." I was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I had no idea."
Yeah, it's interesting. Every time that different sources online seem to say, "Well, the CD is dead," and I'll see people comment, "Oh, I still collect them." Um,
Yeah, people do. They collect them, and I think they sound the best. Like I love my vinyl. Don't get me wrong. I love one of my favorite things to do is while I work from home. So I basically put on a record, side A, side B, and just I'll just let her rip, and I love doing that. But I do think that as far as like sound quality, that the CD is still the best
yeah.
quality format.
Okay. And you guys are obviously from the Seattle area. There
Yep,
have been many different waves of music that have come out from Seattle over the
certainly.
years. Yeah. Is there any local influence that would surprise people that you think has influenced you or the band?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, obviously, Queensryche is a big one for all of us. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Queensryche is from Bellevue, which is not too far from Seattle.
Right.
Um, we like a lot of the. There's a lot of classic underground metal bands here, like Q5, Rail, Fifth Angel. Bands like really cool bands like that, and of course Metal Church also kind of from the area. We got to play a show with them a couple of years ago, out on the Olympic Peninsula, and that was really cool for all of us because we're all huge Metal Church fans. I don't know if there's any of us surprise. I mean, none of us are real big grunge heads, but Sanctuary, of course, they're from around here, I believe. So there's a rich history of melodic metal out here. Heir Apparent, another one. We've run into those cats every once in a while. So, yeah, it's a very cool history, and it's cool to still see a lot of those guys doing the thing out here, and it's fun to play shows with them once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that a lot of people forget that a lot of the bands that you mentioned are from the area.
Totally.
When everything went down in the 90s, it was funny that people all of a sudden forgot that Queensryche was from Seattle, or from
Yeah.
the general area. And to me, it was always interesting. Well, this big band from, when some of the other bands were coming up, they were saying, well, the first big band from the area, and I don't know how long since Heart. And I'm like, wait a second, you just had a band selling black albums that's from the area. So
Yeah, I mean, Operation Mindcrime is such a side. Like, Empire was huge.
yeah,
Like, Silent Lucidity was a mainstream hit, and all those. Like, that was a really big album for those guys. So, Yeah, it is funny that people kind of forget that they're from around here, but we're lucky they are because they play. They're still hitting. They hit. I mean, I don't love casino shows very much. That's the only
Mm.
tough thing. They play a lot around here, but it's a lot of times in a casino, and those shows are always a little weird. But I much prefer. I did see them at the Neptune in town not too long ago, so that was pretty neat. But yeah, there's a lot of melodic metal and stuff that's come out of here over the years. It's pretty cool, and the old guard here are like super supportive, and they're really stoked on some of the new bands that are coming up. It's very neat.
Okay. The album officially drops on what day?
February 13th. It'll be dropping.
Okay. Where can people go to pick up the album and make sure that the most amount of money ends up back in the band's pockets?
Well, if you're in North America, you're going to want to head to our Bandcamp. That's where we're going to get the biggest cut. And look out for things called Bandcamp Fridays, because when they do a
Right.
Bandcamp Friday, Bandcamp doesn't take anything. I do actually believe that the 13th, when the album drops, is a Bandcamp Friday, but we are getting low on our stock. Like the pre-orders have been going really well, so some things are going low. Like the blue vinyl's already sold out, the cassette's already
Cool.
sold out. So if you want to get a CD or a black vinyl, the time is now. So you can head to our Bandcamp, greyhawkmetal.bandcamp.com, and you can secure your copy. If you're in Europe, you can find it there too. There's a link to order it from Europe, and we have distribution over in Europe. So don't worry, your fees for shipping are not going to be horrendous, because we have a distributor over there, and they're going to ship it to you at normal shipping costs. So don't be afraid to order it if you're in Europe right now. For my friends back in Canada, there's nothing I can do. It costs $1 million to ship stuff over the border. I'm really sorry. It costs $18 for me to ship a CD from Seattle to Vancouver. I don't know why. I'm not the post office and I'm not customs. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bandcamp is the spot, or you can head to Cruz del Sur's website too.
Okay. And where should people go to keep up with the band?
Oh, our Instagram, our Facebook. Those are the two most current sites. The handle is Greyhawk Metal at each one. So if you just search Greyhawk Metal on social media, you'll find that. We're very responsive. Send us a message. Let us know what's going on. Check out our posts, comment, interact. We love talking to our fans. So please don't be shy.
Awesome. I want to thank you for your time today. It was awesome talking to you, and the album, for anyone who's remotely into any classic heavy metal or power metal, I definitely recommend it. So I do thank you for your time, Darren.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well.
All right. Cheers. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.